Have you ever had textures looking differently across 3D applications or screens while working on a project? If you want to build a seamless and vibrant color workflow between Substance and Cinema 4D, this video is for you. We'll use the Substance integration in Cinema 4D 2024.4 that received a new update to enhance the color management of the Substance 3D materials. In this tutorial, I will use this scene to show the end-to-end OpenColorIO workflow from Substance to Cinema 4D. Here, this little intergalactic creature finds itself stranded on its planet. As it reaches the other side of the planet, its surroundings look the same again and again. I started to draw on my sketchbook to visualize the idea. I drew several abstract creatures and selected my favorite one. I imported the sketch into Substance 3D Modeler to create the main character and the landscape. If you want to use Modeler for your projects, go check the free beta version available in the Creative Cloud desktop app. I imported the final sculpt in Cinema 4D to remesh it and unwrap the UVs. I combined multiple BVH skeleton animation using the motion clips. I assigned the final animation to my asset with the character bind tool. I played with the soft body simulation from Cinema 4D using the Mix Animation tab to make some part of my character jiggle. I animated my camera and set 2 additional static cameras to frame the action in Painter. We begin with our blank animated scene in Cinema 4D. Let's start the Redshift render view. For the lighting, I will use a dome light with a Studio HDRI from the Substance Asset website. I'll use the same environment in Painter and Designer to keep my lighting consistent. We create 3 Redshift materials, rename them, and assign them to our assets. Okay, my scene is set up correctly. Let's export it to FBX, check the camera, and click on OK. Let's open Painter and drop the FBX file in it. First, we change the normal format to OpenGL for Redshift. Click on Import Cameras and go down to the Color Management menu. By default, Painter is set to Legacy Color Management. In Legacy, Painter displays colors and export maps in sRGB, which will correspond to the basic color management mode of Cinema 4D. Let's open the Color Management menu in the Scene Settings of C4D. The basic mode will import 8-bit and 16-bit maps as sRGB, matching Painter setup in Legacy mode. This workflow will work in between Painter and Cinema 4D by default. If we go with this simple workflow, then we'll need to change the tone mapping to ACES in the display settings of Painter. Painter viewports will now display ACES color space and match the Redshift render view in basic mode. If we open the Advanced Render settings, under Globals, we see the color management options for Redshift. The Redshift render view uses ACES color space too. ACES color space for rendering is always better because it will keep more information in the overexposed areas of the render. For example, if we increase the environment lighting exposure in Painter, with no color space applied on the view, we get pure white overexposed surfaces. With ACES color space applied on the view, we get lighting variation in these overexposed areas. This is why using ACES color space in the viewport is always a good option. Now, let's have a look to the OpenColorIO workflow to be able to render colors like pros. We come back to our import window and select OpenColorIO for the color management. OpenColorIO allows us to use the ACES color space across different applications. The ACES color space represents a wider range of colors, bright and vibrant colors that cannot be represented in the standard sRGB color space. Also, it will keep colors consistent in between different applications and screens. Let's choose ACES 1.2 for the OpenColorIO configuration. The following options let us set different color profiles for import and export. By default, 8-bit and 16-bit visible color textures will be imported and exported in standard sRGB. The 32 bits floating point textures like EXR, TIFF, and HDR can be exported in ACCG, allowing us to send maps in Cinema 4D with very bright and vibrant colors out of the standard sRGB color space. Let's keep everything by default and click on OK. First, we select our camera and import the same Studio HDRI used in Cinema 4D. In the pop-up window, we select Environment and click on OK. We drag and drop the HDRI in the 3D viewport and rotate it. Let's create a fill layer in Painter and instantiate it across texture sets. We color pick the gray color from the Cinema 4D interface, and we set the roughness to match the Redshift material reflection. Now we have the same setup in both applications. In the 3D viewport, we see a drop-down menu with different ACES color spaces. Each one changes the perception of colors in our render. These profiles correspond to different display settings. On Windows, we can search for Color Management, then select the device we are using, and go to All Profiles. My screen is using sRGB, and more precisely D65 for digital and D50 for print. On Mac, go to the Displays menu in the System Settings. Then the screen profile can be retrieved in the preset drop-down menu. In Painter, we can set the right color profile. For me, P3D65 for the screen displaying Painter. In Cinema 4D, we can go to the Scene Settings. Under the Color Management drop-down, we can switch to OpenColorIO. For the OpenColorIO config file, we want to use the same we used in Painter. The ACES 1.2 config file of Painter can be found in Program Files, Adobe Substance 3D Painter, Resources, OCIO, ACES 1.2. We can set the render space in ACES ACCG for the texture workflow. The view transform and thumbnails needs to be set in the screen displaying the Redshift render view. I'm using the same screen for both applications, so I'll select P3D65 too. Now, this color space will be applied to the Redshift render view by overriding its default OCIO preset. Great, our viewports are matching. Let's begin texturing our assets. Let's create a layer and select the base color. The color picker is set to P3D65, letting us choose all the colors available in this color space. Then choose the brightest color available in the sRGB space. The P3D65 color is way more vibrant than the sRGB one. This is how pros play with colors to create vibrant contrast in their renders. If you need help finding color palettes for your project, use Adobe Color. It's a web platform with different tools to build color palettes. I like to go on the Explore tab to find cool color mix for my projects. We can download color palettes to pick colors from it. In Painter, create a fill layer, select the base color channel, then use the eyedropper to color pick the image. Right-click on the layer to add a black mask. Paint on the mask to combine different layers like in Photoshop. Repeat the operation to fully texture the asset. I'll fast forward the texturing process. I'm color picking different Adobe color palettes and combining different fill layers. I'm downloading materials from the Substance 3D asset library to assign them to my model. I'm playing with the shader settings and the texture set settings to add coat and subsurface to my materials. Okay, I finished the texturing in Painter. Let's export the map in SBSAR. We go to File, Export Textures, and select the Document Channel plus Normal plus AO, no alpha. For the file type, we'll use the SBSAR in 16 bits. This will allow us to quickly import the materials through the Substance integration in Cinema 4D. If you want to export ACCG color textures to use the full color range, select the texture sets and change the visible color data maps to 32-bit. This map will be exported to ACCG color space instead of sRGB. Let's import all the SBSAR in Cinema 4D and drag and drop them on our assets. Perfect, we have the same result in Painter and Cinema 4D. Let's texture the background assets. We can create procedural textures in Substance Designer and use the Substance integration to animate them. Let's open Designer and create a new Substance graph. By default, the color management should be set in Legacy. To access to the color management menu of Designer, go to Preferences, Projects, Color Management. In Legacy, Substance Designer works, displays and exports colors in sRGB, matching the import settings of Cinema 4D. We can change the color management to OpenColorIO, the configuration to ACES 1.2 and the viewport to P3D65. We need to restart Designer to apply the changes. Once reopen, we need to set the color space metadata on the output of the color maps like base color, scattering colors, sheen color, etc. We click on the output node and tag ACES ACCG in the color space metadata. Now, the Substance integration will know that this output is set to ACCG color space. The rest of the channels are value datas and don't need any color management. To use the full ACES color range with the nodes, we'll need to set them in HDR 16 or 32 bits by changing the output format. Note that all the Substance 3D materials downloaded from the Substance Asset Library are outputting 8-bit sRGB color maps. We'll have to perform the same process to convert them in 32-bit ACCG color space to unclump their color ranges. Personally, I'm using Designer in Legacy mode because I never choose my final colors here. I will set Designer back to Legacy and restart. I'm activating the ACES tone mapping in Designer's 3D viewport. I'll fast forward all the creation process. I'm using a perling noise to animate circle patterns on 2 different masks. I'm using these masks to blend 3 different colors and material properties. The perling noise disorder parameter will move the flow of the noise. When the creation process is finished, we can expose parameters from the graph to animate them later in Cinema 4D. Okay, let's publish our SBSAR by right-clicking on the package. We can drag and drop the SBSAR in Cinema 4D and assign it to our background. Now we can animate our textures by selecting the material and adding keyframes to the parameters. To check the animation speed, we can toggle the real-time C4D viewport and lower the resolution of the Substance 3D material. The movement is looping nicely. We can increase the output back to 2K. I can now choose my final colors through the OCIO color picker. I'm using the sRGB color picker because this material was exported in sRGB with Designer in Legacy mode. Our scene is ready to be rendered. We'll set the frame saving destination in the render settings. If we want to continue using ACES workflow in After Effects, we need to save our frames in TIFF 32 bits. Okay, let's render the final animation. At the end of the rendering process, we import all the frames in After Effects. We can set our project to OCIO ACES 1.2 in the project settings under the Color tab. We choose ACCG for the working color space and ACES P3D65 for the display. Then we can continue working on our final video. This is the final result after some color grading and magic bullet layers in After Effects. At the end, we can export our video into the H.264 format. In the Color tab, we choose Output sRGB to make our video compatible with any standard web player. In this video, we've covered the OpenColorIO workflow between Substance and Cinema 4D. This workflow will help you to get accurate results between apps and screens. I hope you enjoyed the tutorial. Thanks for watching and stay tuned for more tutorial videos.